Hello, my dear friends. My name is Harold, and welcome to the Sanctum. This video is essentially going to be an introduction to astrology and how astrology works and how it can be useful in your life to learn about yourself, to learn about the changes that take place in your life, as well as how later on there are ways in which you can alter those influences to guide your life in another direction. So, first of all, astrology is something that most of the world misunderstand, and they only look at one particular sign in astrology. Usually when people read their fortune on the newspaper or on Facebook or something like that, they only look at one aspect of their very own astrological chart. For example, you might meet a friend of yours who says, "Oh, I'm a Taurus," and you might meet another friend of yours who says, "Oh, I'm a Leo," and you might say, "Oh, I'm a Virgo," right? But in reality, that is just one sign. And astrology is a lot more complicated than that. It's extremely complicated. People study it for decades and decades and decades and lifetimes, and still there is more to learn because it's that much of a complex subject. So when people keep saying I'm a Virgo, I'm a Taurus, I'm a this, I'm a that, they're particularly talking about their sun sign. So this is what you can find by just looking at your birthday. Yeah. So if you were born on the 1st of January, your sun was in the sign of Capricorn. So imagine the earth in the center like that, and imagine a circle around it, just for the sake of this explanation, just to make it easier. So this particular 30-degree sector of that particular area is what you might call, let's say, Aries, because that's where the constellation of Aries is. And next to it would be the constellation of Taurus, and next to it the constellation of Gemini, and so on. It goes all the way around the earth until it comes back to Pisces, and then next to Pisces is once again Aries. Right, so that's a 360-degree circle, and 30-degree sectors creates 12 zodiac signs. So obviously the earth moves around the sun, but in the earth's perspective, the sun moves around the earth. Not exactly, but in our perspective, the sun is moving around the earth. So when the sun is at this particular position where the constellation of Aries is, all the energies of Aries and that what that constellation represents gets absorbed by the sun, or the sun's light passes through that particular constellation, taking on its qualities and shines onto the earth. So therefore the earth receives the influence of the sun in that particular constellation, which is Aries. So therefore when a child is born at that particular moment, the imprint on their consciousness would be the light of the sun with the qualities of Aries. So therefore their sun sign is in Aries, and they might have a more Aries type personality. But that's only one aspect of their personality. This is why two Aries may not be the same, right? And not this is where, if you read a fortune on the newspaper or on Facebook, it may not be 100% accurate. It might be maybe 10% accurate. In some way you might go, it's kind of, but not really there, because that's only one aspect of you. That's only where your sun was. If you were an Aries, that's where your sun was when you were born. But that's not the only planet in the universe. You've got the sun, then you've got the moon, you've got Mercury, you've got Venus, you've got Jupiter, you've got Saturn. So you've got all of these other aspects that are also influencing you, right? So you've also got your rising sign. So that's where the sun was rising from when you were born. It's called the rising sign. So where the moon was when you were born, even though you're in Aries, the moon might be in Capricorn, right? And your rising sign might be something else, and your Mercury might be something else, and your Venus might be something else, and your Saturn might be something else. So, like that, you don't just have one, technically, we have all of them. But the strongest influences are the Sun, the Moon, and the rising. Those are the three main aspects that we look at in astrology. So, in reality, if you want to get a better understanding of your own astrological chart, you have to look at the whole thing, and it's scarily accurate when you do that. It's like scarily accurate. So that's the difference between Facebook astrology and actual proper ancient Hellenistic astrology. Yeah. So where the sun was might be different to where your moon was, right? And each aspect, each planet has a different meaning. For example, and I'll talk about these in my in other videos so that we can start to dig deeper into astrology. For example, the sun, as a very quick introduction, the sun might rule the ego, the eye. After all, it's that central star that shines its light and everything revolves around it in that way. The moon governs the unconscious mind, right? So the sun also governs the conscious mind, moon unconscious mind, because even in the sky, even in space, the moon receives the light of the sun and absorbs that light and shines the rest as moonlight. So it's similar to the unconscious. Our conscious mind shines that, it impresses upon the unconscious in that way. So that's where we got this sun moon duality even within ourselves. So Mercury is that aspect of intelligence, wisdom, communication. Venus is where you'd find all those stuff about love and beauty and luxury and things like that. Saturn is where you'd find aspects of karma and things related to even death and restriction, anything that's restricting you. Then Mars would be all to do with action and even aggression and activity and things like that. So this is just a very quick introduction to that. So I'll talk about each planet in way more depth in different videos. But this is just an introduction. So if we understand where our planets are and we understand where they are now, meaning when we were born, we've got a certain chart. That's what we call the natal chart. And those planets move as we grow up. Yeah. So where the planets are now, we call those that's the astrology of this particular day. And when we compare that to when we were born and where the planets have moved, now we can determine the shifts that are taking place in our life. So sometimes certain planets might be having a war because they've moved, and a certain planet where it was has now moved to the other side. So now it's in opposition to where it was when you were born. So like this, there's certain influences that may affect your life. Yeah. And how you find your entire astrological chart and how you actually plot that entire chart is by first you got to know your actual birth time. The time you were born is important, and you can use an online natal chart plotter. For example, you can find this on astro.com is a very good one. Another one is called astrotheme.com. Those are the two that I use, but just like that, there's a variety of other natal chart plotting websites that you can find online. So that's how you would actually find out what your entire natal chart is. So we'll look deeper into that. And if we understand this process, there are ways in which we can work with the planetary energies to shift how our life is going. So especially if there's a bad transit or transit might that might be creating more conflict than is necessary, there are ways in which we can shift that and we can make it a lot more chill and relaxed. Yeah. So we'll talk a lot more about that, and I hope this makes sense. It's just an introduction to astrology, and there's a lot more that we can discuss. So take care, and I hope this makes sense. Bye.